A year ago, Jacob and Rebecca made a decision to move to a new town. Jacob had been offered a promotion, making the relocation a perfect excuse. Plus, the town was further south, with a warmer climate that felt far more comfortable. Of course, this new chapter meant leaving old friend behind, now thousands of miles away, and finding new faces to connect with. Rebecca also had to dive back into the job search. Fortunately, she quickly secured a solid office position in the heart of the city. At her new job, Rebecca formed friendships, including one with Chloe, a colleague who had been with the company almost since the very beginning. Chloe knew all the ins and outs, everything from office tips to the hidden challenges. Initially, getting Chloe's help was tough, but over time they started chatting outside of work. Rebecca discovered that Chloe was an interesting person, and despite the common belief that making real friends as an adult is hard, they truly clicked. Chloe, who was 34 and unmarried, was very shy, especially around new men. Her nervousness often led her to blurt out strange, off-the-wall comments that guaranteed she wouldn't get a second date. She had had a few flings she considered serious, but for the men, it was mostly about casual fun, not long-term commitment. One evening during dinner, Rebecca mentioned that Chloe had been ghosted by yet another potential boyfriend and was hoping to meet up at a cafe. A cafe, huh? Jacob said with a sigh. Are you sure she didn't mean a bar? I've never been there, so I can't say, Rebecca answered softly. But you know Chloe, no drinking. Not this time, Rebecca assured him. Last time she came over with a bottle of wine after a breakup. She wouldn't stop whining for hours. The next day, Rebecca went to meet Chloe, but what she didn't know was that Chloe had been less than truthful. Instead of being dumped, she had grown tired of being single and decided to try something different, speed dating. A local group was hosting the event, with tables arranged in a circle, each one with a female participant. The men would rotate around the circle, spending a minute at each table, and when the timer went off, they would move on to the next woman. At the end, everyone would choose who they wanted to continue talking to. Rebecca had no idea what she was walking into until she saw the setup. Chloe, you dragged me to a speed dating event? She whispered, shocked. Please don't be mad, Chloe begged. I really want to try it, but I was too scared to come alone. But I'm married, Rebecca pointed out, exasperated. You don't have to participate. Just sit and watch, Chloe urged. However, the organizers didn't allow spectators. To make matters worse, one of the female participants had canceled at the last minute, so they seated Rebecca at an empty table. Not wanting to cause a scene or ruin a vibe for others, Rebecca agreed to sit there. She figured she could just tell every guy who sat down that she was happily married. Problem solved. The host explained the rules one more time, then turned on the music and signaled the beginning of the first round of mini-dates. The first few men rushed over, showering Rebecca with compliments. As soon as they saw her wedding ring, their interest quickly faded. A few college students joked that a married woman might be more fun, but for the most part, Rebecca just sat there awkwardly, counting down the minutes until it was over. Meanwhile, she noticed Chloe, who was clearly nervous, stumbling through each introduction. Finally, it was the last round. A tall, handsome man in his 40s slid into the seat across from Rebecca. He flashed a dazzling smile, making her pause for a moment. She didn't immediately show her ring. I noticed you the moment you walked in, he said in a smooth voice, and I also saw your ring. So don't worry, he added, causing Rebecca's cheeks to flush. We're just chatting, right? That's not a crime. He chuckled and introduced himself as Ethan. Turned out he was married as well. According to him, his wife was completely fine with him attending these events, claiming it was a way to network for business purposes. Many of the women there were in complicated situations pressed for time, so these speed dates provided a quick alternative. For him, it was just a fast way to meet potential partners for various projects. Despite the brief interactions, Ethan made a strong impression. He was intelligent, charming, and undeniably good-looking, causing Rebecca to feel a pang of guilt for experiencing a spark with a stranger. It almost seemed like he sensed her inner conflict. As the timer went off, he smiled and said, How about we grab coffee tomorrow? I'd love your thoughts on a restaurant idea I'm working on. He placed his business card on the table and left. When Rebecca returned home that evening, Jacob casually asked how things had gone. She gave a vague response, saying it was fine, choosing not to mention the speed dating event. There was no need to add stress to the situation when she hadn't done anything wrong. But as the night went on, she remained quiet, preoccupied with thoughts of the business card burning a hole in her pocket. Over the next week, Rebecca grew more distant, barely speaking. She started spending more time with Chloe after work, strolling through the city or grabbing coffee. Jacob found it odd that his wife and Chloe had become so inseparable, but he didn't think too much about it at first. That is, until one day he saw Chloe walking hand in hand with a man in the park. Guess she's found someone new, Jacob thought, feeling relieved that maybe Chloe wouldn't drag Rebecca into her drama anymore. That evening, when Rebecca got home, Jacob casually asked, "So how's Chloe holding up?" "Same old story," Rebecca sighed. "She spent hours crying on my shoulder." Jacob's jaw nearly dropped. He had just seen Chloe, and she wasn't crying. She was all smiles, walking with a new boyfriend. Something felt off, so he decided to keep an eye on Rebecca. The next time she said she was meeting Chloe, a couple of days later, Jacob managed to leave work early and waited near Rebecca's office. He watched as she walked out, heading straight for a dark-colored car in a parking lot. She climbed in, and the man behind the wheel kissed her and handed her a bouquet of roses. Jacob's blood boiled, but he held back, forcing himself not to confront them immediately. Instead, he followed them in his own car. They drove around town before eventually heading toward a hotel. That was it. Jacob stomped on the gas, caught up with them, and stormed over, furious. He slapped Rebecca so hard that her head jerked back and then landed a punch on the man's jaw, sending him stumbling. "You traitor!" Jacob shouted at Rebecca. "Give me your keys. You're not stepping foot in my house again." Rebecca, shaking, fumbled through her purse and handed him the keys. She opened her mouth to speak, but he silenced her with a sharp wave of his hand. He noticed the man's wedding band, too. With one last glare, Jacob turned and walked back to his car. At home, Jacob began gathering Rebecca's clothes, tossing them into trash bags. As he yanked out a handful of her dresses, a small piece of paper fluttered to the floor. It was the same business card that Rebecca had pocketed that night. Curious, Jacob looked up the company online and saw the face of the so-called Ethan, his face now one that Jacob despised. His next move was calculated. He tracked down Ethan's wife and informed her about her husband's little hobby. Turns out she had no idea and was far from pleased. How she dealt with Ethan after that phone call was anyone's guess. But there was more. Ethan's wife happened to be close friends with Rebecca's boss. It was a small world. Within days, Rebecca was fired from her job, and since she had been working off the books, they refused to pay her the remainder of her salary. Now she had no income and nowhere to go. Even Chloe couldn't help. She had moved in with her new boyfriend, leaving Rebecca out in the cold. So as fate would have it, Rebecca found herself completely alone, regretting every single decision that had led her to this point.